Good, I guess it's good evening, isn't it? I kind of got caught by surprise. If my sound is good, will you please put a 1, because I'm fighting with my microphone and I have to order another one and they're expensive. So I'm a little bit irritated. It's such a pretty, it's a nice, look how pretty the microphone is, but it's having some serious problems. So if it sounds okay, put a 1 and we shall move forward, okay? And again, I know I look tired and that would be because I am. So, but you know, I've got to be here. So, hey, Kawinky Dink, how are you doing? Hey, TCE. Hey, Kathy R. Welcome, Big Ups. And how are you, Lacey? I knew that wasn't Lucy. How are you, Lacey? Hey, Critter Watcher. Ceresia, welcome. All right, peeps. I saw you the other night, Ceresia. It was nice to see you in the other channel. All right, so really, I'm not so much talking about Courtney, but this was a video that I had done previously, and this is Courtney Sierra Stouffer, who went missing about an hour and a half from Bryan Kohberger's house in Pennsylvania, and she went missing in 2012. It was very similar circumstances in terms of there was an argument at the house. There was a lot of yelling and screaming. There was a boyfriend involved, but they didn't think that he was a part of whatever it was that happened. And then just like in the case of Madeline out in Midland, Texas, when they got into the house, everything was there and she was gone. So she's gone. She's a beautiful girl, correct? Well, we are learning now that this is so, I don't know why it's shocking to me. It shouldn't be shocking. It should be, well, of course they're looking at other people. But I'm being, you know, it's a little shocking to me. I guess because at the time you think about it and you think, yeah, we're probably going to find out he's involved in other murders or other missing cases. But then you just sort of let it go. And so now we're really getting some hard evidence. I knew about this woman, Dana, not the one that's on the screen. The one that's on the screen is the video that I did, I don't know, 6 months ago, 8 months ago. Well, I guess I could tell you exactly how long ago it was. 4 months ago. See, not good, was it? Okay. So this video was done 4 months ago. And I got a good reception on this video. For one thing, this young woman looks like a spitting image of the girls in Idaho, doesn't she? I mean, she looks like she could fit in right with them and be accepted. The age range was right. She was 21 at the time that she went missing. She was a free spirit and was doing some partying. That's okay. And now we know that this was one of 2 cases, this lady and then the lady that we've got movement on now, Dana Smithers is her name. And so both of these, when I was looking at missing people's cases in Pennsylvania and the surrounding states, both Dana Smithers and then Courtney came up in my searches. And I read about Dana at the time, and I ultimately decided I don't see this. I don't really see where Dana would fit in to this range of attraction for a serial killer. Now, on hindsight, I'm a little, I don't know, I'm still not so sure. But with Courtney, They need to, now we do know this. So Bryan Kohberger's parents have been called and they have testified in front of a new grand jury in Pennsylvania. And it is in relation to the case of Dana Smithers. And Dana went missing a year ago, May 2022. She's a 45-year-old woman. At the time she went missing, she had a 6-year-old daughter. She had a couple other kids too, but she had a young child. And she had gone to a festival. And the thing is that she is from the same county as Bryan Kohberger in Pennsylvania. Her body was just recently recovered. And it was covered on an on-ramp. It was in the woods of an on-ramp to the interstate. And it had been out there this whole time, they think, because of the level of decay. But the body was recovered less than 30 minutes from Bryan Kohberger's home. And so all of this was taking place in Monroe County, which was where Bryan was living at the time. Now, specific to they had 2 grand juries. The first grand jury, specific to Dana Smithers and the question about Bryan Kohberger, it was said that Bryan Kohberger was considered in the disappearance. This was after he was arrested for Idaho. But they said that he had a solid alibi. They said he had a solid alibi, and because of that alibi, it was unlikely that he was connected to the disappearance of Dana Smithers. Well, then they find Dana, and I guess there's more that gets uncovered. And so the grand jury then responds by subpoena. They issue subpoenas for Bryan Kohberger's mom and dad. They bring Bryan Kohberger's mom and dad to the grand jury for independent questioning. So they're not in the room together at the time that they are, in fact, being questioned. And that leads me to think, were Bryan's parents, is that his alibi? If they had originally considered him in this disappearance, and then they went through their questioning and they said, well, no, Bryan's got a good alibi, and they had left it at that, they might have been content to say, okay, well, credibility. We can believe mom and dad. Well, what if they learned that there was some extenuating circumstances and that credibility of mom or dad might not have been what they thought? So they respond by dragging mom and dad into court and saying, okay, well, let's question you guys about his alibi. What else could it be? How else could you account for that, considering it's the discussion of a missing 45-year-old mother with really seemingly no connection to the Kohberger family at all, unless maybe some level of connection somehow with one of the 2 sisters. But the sisters didn't get subpoenaed. It was the mom and the dad. This doesn't look good. This looks really, really bad. And here's something that we don't know yet, but it bothers me. I've avoided wild speculation to this point, but this bothers me. How did Bryan Kohberger's father get to Washington so quickly? Why was he there? I know that the story was, well, he came because I didn't want to be by myself as I make that long drive home. But does that sound accurate for a guy with his level of intellect, his independence? He's living on his own. He's working. What does that really sound right? My mom and dad would think I had lost my mind if I said, hey, get on an airplane, make a 5-6 hour flight out to where I am, so then you can ride together as we make like a 31-hour drive back home. My parents would say, have you lost your mind? And they would probably tell me, just get on an airplane. You got to go back and work anyway, or go to school or whatever. So there's 2 points here. Number one, I think it's probably logical to assume or speculate that Bryan lost his teaching assistantship, that what we've heard coming out of the university is true. I struggle with that because I think that is a direct violation of employment law, not HIPAA, the education privacy. I lost it. I'm having one of those weird moments. How would a professor be able to come out and talk about a person's teaching assistantship because it's part of his educational curriculum? So how could the school do that? I find it very difficult to believe that they would comment on it. Could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm right about everything. I'm certainly not. But it seems odd to me. But let's just say yes. Now there is also a mother. There's a mother that's on YouTube, and she has said, or Twitter, and she has said that that Bryan Kohberger was teaching on December the 19th because he was the teaching assistantship in her son's class, and that he was there on the 19th, and that I think she said that the letter where he got fired was the 30th. But if that's true, that does not match the story that we got from the school officials. So see, even that is not really accurate, and it would also be outside of what I know about privacy of a student. Okay, you got to remember, he's enrolled as a student. Even if he lost his teaching assistantship, he still is protected under that Educational Privacy Act, right? So if he's going back after December, he's going back in the spring for the spring semester, why would he make a 30-hour drive? Why wouldn't he just get on an airplane and come back? But the big thing that really bothers me, why was Dad there? No one's been able to explain that. Why was he there? What was his role? What was he supposed to be doing? Maybe he was there to drive. They would take turns driving, maybe. Just seems odd and strange in a case that is already incredibly strange. Now we wonder, we're getting this information about the mom and the dad did respond to subpoenas. They did go and give their testimony in the missing case of Dana Smithers, which really makes one question, were they the so-called solid alibi? Now, the investigation continues, and the grand jury is still open. They have not concluded their proceedings. So this is very, 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 very interesting. All right? So that's number one. And then when you combine it, the young lady that you see that's up on the screen based on a video that I did 4 months ago, this is Courtney. And Courtney is a 21-year-old girl in Pennsylvania that went missing after an argument late at night, after they had gone out partying and whatnot. And the neighbors heard arguing and yelling, and then she just seemed to disappear. So there were I think 15 missing people in Pennsylvania specifically, but there were really only 4 or 5, if I remember correctly. There was like 4 or 5 that would have been like in the appropriate time frame. The other 3 were men. So they didn't really even fall in line at all with a pattern. And so the 2 that came up 4 months ago when I was reading and learning about Courtney was Palmyra, Pennsylvania, and then Stroudsburg is where Dana Smithers was living at the time that she went missing. And the night that she went missing, the last time she was seen, she was actually at a street festival. So she was at a street festival. They were having a great time, having fun, and they were drinking, and she just poofed into thin air. She was seen like on a Ring doorbell at about 11 o'clock at night, and then nothing after that. Very similar circumstances. In Courtney's case, there were a lot of similarities. And I would invite you to go to this video. Let me put the link in the chat. Hold on just a minute. Copy. Oops, wrong file, sorry. Okay, so here's the link to the video that I made on Courtney, where I go through and talk about like potential suspects, who they ruled out, information from the parents, very specific similarities between this and Idaho 4, connections to Bryan Kohberger. I'm telling you, this is going to end up being, and I think that Jennifer Coffindaffer is exactly the same. I think she is thinking the same thing I am, and that is, this is not over. You don't go into a house with sleeping people, at a house that you've been watching with 6 sleeping people, and you go in there and you slaughter 4 people. Hold on, not done yet. You slaughter 4 people with a knife, and you're not military, and you're not a hunter or anything like that. And then afterwards, you get away with it, and you have this whole escape plan. It routes you up around through, areas of Washington that you don't normally go. And then your ego is so hurt because you want people to know that is your handiwork. You don't want anyone else taking credit or taking responsibility for what happened to the Idaho 4. And I'm not being disrespectful to Zaina and Ethan and Maddie and Kaylee. I'm saying that from this primary psychopath, right? As a primary psychopath, with probability for these narcissistic drives, that as a narcissist who is a primary psychopath, that listening to all of us on YouTube night after night after night, or we're on Reddit, we're having this discussion night after night after night, and everybody's saying, you better look at the fraternity boys. You better look at the frat guys. You better look at Jack Showalter. You better look at Jack D. I mean, everybody was naming so many different people. And I want you to imagine that you are a freaky deaky, narcissistic psychopath, primary in nature, and you're listening to this and you're feeling like really empowered. You're feeling really strong and larger than life, and these people are taking your handiwork and giving other men the glory of what you accomplished. It gets under their skin. They want, in this weird kind of narcissistic need, hunger, they accomplish something that they built up in their minds, and they built it up into this Hollywood blockbuster kind of event. They pull it off, they get away with it, and they are feeling full of themselves, just cocky and powerful. And now you got some Jack Showalter is getting the responsibility. You're looking at Jack Showalter and going, this little frat boy, they think this little frat boy got away with the crime of the century? Ha ha ha. I'm the one that did it. And so what does he do in response? He finds a picture that the profile looks very much like Bryan Kohberger. Very, very much like Bryan Kohberger. He puts that up. He takes an incel's name. I've got another video done around the same time. I talked about the incel rage, and I talked about Elliot Rodgers and what drove him, and that after his manifesto was put out there, that the incel groups became very dangerous bastions of misogyny and hate, feeding off of Elliot Rodgers, that he was some sort of superhero, that he was fighting back against the injustices of, the Chads and the Stacys, or whatever they're called, Madisons. I think there's something to this. I mean, I thought it when I first did this video, or I never would have done the video. Now at this point, Elliot Rodgers, Papa Rodgers, there is a post that was made, and I have noticed many people are stepping gently around the topic, and I shall as well. But they're stepping gently around the topic of this one particular posting. And if you read the posting, I'm not going to say it here, but if you read the posting, you recognize that Papa Rodgers, that he says exactly how it came to be that Maddie is dead in the bed, and that he then kills Kaylee while she's on her 2 feet coming into the room, and then he actually puts her on the bed, lays her on top of Maddie. He does something, I'm not going to talk about what it is. He does something that is, he's describing it in this Reddit post. He does something that would result in a room condition that is described by the affidavit, the condition in the room. There's a lot of aligning Papa Rodgers postings I'm talking about the investigators are doing, aligning Papa Rodgers postings with what they actually observed and collected in the house or on the grounds, and they do believe that it is him. So he makes an account with a profile picture that looks like him, and he takes the name Papa Rodgers, assuming Elliot Rodgers was just a little peon. I'm the daddy of Elliot Rodgers. Let me show you what I can do. And then he goes on to try to get back some glory. He wants some of that glory that he feels like he's missing out on, because we're all pointed at the two Jacks, Jack DeCour, Jack Showalter. We're pointing at them. We're pointing at other fraternity members. I mean, and I think he was mad. I think he got mad. He didn't want his glory to be given away to less deserving men. I believe that. If that is the case, if that is true, then we're talking about a real predator. We're talking about a guy that's been hunting and killing for quite a while. It took an awful lot of very calm, very strategic movements to accomplish going into that house, creating that scene that he created, and then walk away, whatever he did with all the blood, the clothes and such, and then getting in his car and driving and doing his disposal route. Barrymore, if you did a disposal route, before, finally going home, or going back. He went back to the house 9 o'clock or so that morning, and then he went home. I've thought about that, and I kept thinking, man, that was different. That wasn't like a heated moment, an altercation where things got out of hand. It was methodical. It was it was very messy, and it was a lot of blood. And I don't really want to go into why, but if you were following the Papa Rogers postings, you know why. And the investigators now say they believe that he did take the name Papa Rogers, and there's 2 more names that he was also posting under. But why would he do that? If this was a moment that got out of hand and it was accidental, or maybe he only meant to kill one of them and he accidentally killed the rest, or whatever. If he managed to get out scot-free, if he managed to get away, why would he then take the chance digitally to go on and reveal himself? Why would he do that? The only explanation that I can think of is that ego, that narcissistic supply, having accomplished this, Bryan, let's call it this, Papa Rogers opus, the big one. He'd been daydreaming and fantasizing. He had been hunting and stalking. He had built all this up in his mind. He was going to be up there on the level with BTK or some other, whatever. And he did it, and he was successful. And now other people are getting the attention for it. I think it bothered him. I think he didn't want others getting the attention. So I do think that it is quite notable that, I do think that it is quite notable that first grand jury, or the first part of the grand jury, they say we looked at Bryan Kohberger for Dana Smithers, but he has a solid alibi and we're moving on. The investigation continues, and they think, okay, wait a minute, we got a problem. They found her body. Let's bring him back. But this time it wasn't about Bryan himself. It was his 2 parents that received the subpoenas, and they were questioned by the grand jury. And as stated, grand jury remains open. The investigation is ongoing. And then that happened in the same county as where Bryan Kohberger and his family lived. The location of Dana Smithers was less than 30 minutes from his house. And then in 2012, which was about 10 years before Dana went missing, about an hour and 15 minutes or so from his house where they were living at the time, you had Courtney that went missing. And this is the young woman that's up on the screen right now. She was 21 at the time that she went missing. And her case is still open. It has not been solved. They may be getting there, they may be getting there. If it is the case, ego, Lady of Angels, absolutely. So if it is the case that there have actually been multiple murders, that we are looking at a Ted Bundy type of situation, although I don't think, if he's a psychopath, I don't believe it's the same type of psychopath as Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy had these rages, and he was a very charming man. And in between his rages, he did pretty good. He could get along pretty well. He could fit in. People liked him. He had a long-standing love relationship. He was really good with kids. And yet he would have these moments, very dark moments, where he would just explode in anger. Bryan Kohberger's different. I think he's primary. Now, I do think he's narcissistic for sure, but I do think he's a primary psychopath, where he's born at birth, something is wrong neurologically. Frontal lobe doesn't have quite as much activity as what you would expect with somebody that has a healthy system. But well, I don't want to get into that because I'm going to do a video on it. But anyway, I do think a big component for Bryan, the fact that it does look like he was Papa Rogers. It does look like he described the crime scene and the manner of death, or how he got into his, well, let me just say, passive egress. I do think that he did that, and the only explanation for why he would take that chance of taking on the moniker Papa Rogers and basically describing the crime scene so that the investigators are going to know damn well it's him, because they've kept the crime scene secret. So he's like, it's almost like BTK in the letters to the newspaper. He's communicating with them and he's letting them know, ha ha ha, I'm out here and you have no idea who I am. But little old fraternity pack rat, Jack Showalter, Jack DeCour, you guys got the wrong ones. You don't even know which girl I was after. You guys don't know anything. Ha 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 ha. I think it's that narcissistic thing. I do. So if it's been 10 years of killing, if he got Courtney, if he got Dana and any number of others in between, if he went to other states for vacation or whatever, he might find himself, y'all gonna be surprised because I've said the exact opposite, but with this information about the grand jury and his parents being questioned by the grand jury for Dana Smithers, we might see a plea deal. We might see a plea deal. If there is a line of victims that all built up to this big final, apex, or this big crescendo of this big massive murder, he might do a deal. Because you got to think at this point, if it's him, if Courtney, the girl on the screen, if he did that, if the 45-year-old woman, Dana Smithers, that they have the grand jury open for right now, if he did that, there will be people in between, I think. I'm pretty certain there will be. There'll be people in between. He knows he's never getting out of it with Idaho. They got him. So if he's so egotistical that he will take on the moniker Papa Rogers with his, basically a picture is exactly looks like him, then wouldn't he want the notoriety? Wouldn't he want to be in the books with the likes of Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer, Hillside Strangler? He would want that. He would want that notoriety, that fame. So I think if this is him, and we don't know if it is, but if it's him, he could take a plea deal. If this is not him, and it was the Idaho 4, I don't think he will do a plea deal for the same exact reason. He's going to want his day in court. He's going to want the excitement because this is his trip to Disney World. This is the big one for him. So, what do you guys think? Am I off base here? Are y'all thinking in similar parallel lines? Like, how do you think? I see possibility now. When did his parents go to the grand jury? I think it was like the first part, like maybe the first week or so in May. It is, Yvette. It's pretty amazing. Hey, Hybrid Pisces, how are you? Yep, Ted Bundy. Yep. Hey, AK, how are you? We miss you too. Wow, but this was 10 years ago. How old would he be then? Yeah, around 20. So he'd be the same age as Courtney. I'd easily believe that he had killed before. I refrain from pointing my finger at anyone, knowing this heinous, barbaric, unthinkable crime had to be committed by someone who had most likely done it before. A lot of people thought that. Now, I will, look, I'll say this too. There was a lot of reasons to think that he had done it before. For one thing, it was a knife. He didn't have any background, like military or anything like that, but using a knife on a creature, a large animal, that's not for the faint of heart. It's not like cutting butter, if you know what I mean. The skin is very, very, very thick. The muscles are very difficult to cut through. It's hard work. And I'm going to spare the gory details, but if you don't know how to handle the knife, you could very well cut your own hand badly, right? Because it gets very slippery and whatnot. I keep thinking about Buddy, the dog. To me, that felt like practicing. So, a lot of people say, well, you had to have done it before because it's too much. To know the experience of what it would be like to go in and kill one man with a knife, that would be hard. But 4 people? That's almost like even for people that are military special forces or whatnot, to them it seems like quite an impressive feat. Even for somebody that would be trained, it would push you to the limits of your physical capabilities. It'd be very, very difficult. A lot of people have made comments like, no way would he walk right past Dylan and not kill her too. No way would he, walk out knowing that there was an eyewitness. Well, what you may be disregarding is that he may have been at the level of physical exhaustion. It's possible that he was just sort of seeing like right what was in front of him as he was trying to just get out of the house. Complete exhaustion, overwhelmed by, epinephrine and the stress hormones that his body had released. He may not have seen her. Realistically, he may have developed just this tunnel vision, and all he could think of was, now it's a matter of self-survival. Now it's about me getting out of this house and getting away from this area without getting caught. And so, realistically, it could happen. I think this rather large group of people that have joined the Bryan Kohberger fan club. Yes, it's true. We had a Chris Watts fan club. Now we have a Bryan Kohberger fan club. I think they're not being realistic. The evidence is there. This is going to be very hard for Ann Taylor to really do much with. But like I said, I think he'll go all the way. I think he'll want the trial. I think he'll do the whole thing. But if he did this before, if he's responsible for Dana, if he's responsible for Courtney, then we may see more of a Ted Bundy cut. Now, Ted Bundy, don't get me wrong, he waited till right before the execution. But notice, he wanted everybody to know he did it. He didn't want to die before he got all the glory for what he did. So it wasn't until he had no more chances legally that he finally gave his interview and named the people and when it happened and how it happened and whatnot. If Bryan Kohberger did these other 2 murders in Pennsylvania, I think he could make a plea deal. I think he could make a plea deal, but it will be aligned with, I want to tell my story. I want my glory. I earned it. This is how my name goes down in infamy, and I don't want there to be any doubt in anybody's mind that I did it. So it could happen. All right. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for coming and listening. Like I said, I put the link for the Courtney Stouffer video that I did 4 months ago. I hope that you will go. I'm putting the link one more time in the chat. I really do hope you'll go and watch it. I did a lot of research on it to tell Courtney's story, and I think you'll enjoy it. All right? Okay. I am very happy to talk with you today. I'm glad you're here. I appreciate it. And I have another story that I want to do today. Sarah Boone, the suitcase killer. She has written another letter to the judge. Well, it looks more like a dissertation, actually. So I want to do another video where I read the letter and we discuss it and talk about it, but it's probably going to have to be done. Can't do it tomorrow. Probably going to have to be done Friday. But that'll be good. It'll be wild speculation. Wild speculation Friday, right? All right. Thanks. Please go watch the video on Courtney Stouffer, and I will see you on Friday. Okay?